My little journey started out in South Carolina. I was going to the University of South Carolina. My next door neighbor was a real estate developer. One Sunday morning, he woke up. My mother was going to church. She went to church every Sunday. So my mother was going to church. My next door neighbor asked my mother, "Where's your son?" She goes, "Well, he's in bed," because I was a college student, right? So anyway, I'd gone out and had fun on Saturday night. So anyway, he came and got me out of bed and said, "Hey, I need a greeter for a new subdivision that we're opening in South Carolina." And I go, "How much you paying?" He told me. I said, "That works." So he said, "Have your suit on and meet me in an hour." So I went out there. I greeted 1,500 people. I didn't know what a greeter was, but I figured it out pretty quick. So one thing led to another. I was going to school full time, and I started working with this developer, and one thing led to another. And then I got into the advertising, the marketing, media placement, lead analysis, direct mail, billboards. I was doing really a little bit of everything. We became, in the course of about 2 years, we started doing a lot of condominiums in Charleston, Hilton Head, Myrtle Beach, Savannah, and the company just started to grow and grow. Well, with the growth came a lot of opportunities for me because I was young, I was impressionable, I always wanted to work. So I was going to school full time and I worked full time. And the thing about me that the president liked was the fact that anytime he wanted to go somewhere, he knew I would go. On Christmas Day, New Year's Day, Easter, anytime, day or night, I'd always go with him where he's going. Flying all over the country, looking at sites, condominium developments, looking at other real estate developments. I worked my way through college with him. It was just a fantastic learning experience. And then I got out of college. The first place I went was Gatlinburg. We were starting a new project in Gatlinburg. So I went to Gatlinburg. Was up there for a couple of years, and then I moved to Orlando. First property we did was on the Wet and Wild Lake off of International Drive. It was a phenomenal success. Then I went to Aspen. We had another condominium development in Aspen. We did that. Winter Park. Then I moved to Atlantic City, and we were doing some big high rises up there. And then I was summoned back to the corporate office, and I went back there and I sold 150 condominiums over the telephone, because we were the first people to do that, selling over the telephone and using the Wall Street Journal to generate the leads. And then I was in charge of the direct mail budget for the company, and I was spending $100,000 a month on direct mail, but we were phenomenally successful. Then I started my own company. I was 30 years old, and I started a company in Beaufort, South Carolina, and we were selling land. I was in Beaufort, and of course I was doing land, housing developments, hotels, apartments, everything when I got to Beaufort. And that was a phenomenal success. I sold the company in 10 years, so I was about 40, sold the company. Then I went back to Columbia, South Carolina, and a friend of mine wanted me to help him start a community called Lake Carolina, which was an Andres Dewani community. Andres Dewani designed Celebration, the Disney City. So we did a 6,000 unit project in Columbia. We dug a 2-mile long lake, and it's been a phenomenal success. It was going for 25 years. So anyway, I was up there for about 6 years, loved it. They called me the mayor of Lake Carolina. I knew everybody. I was the go-to guy. I'd go up, arrive at the office at 7 in the morning, people waiting on me in the parking lot. Anyway, I would go in there, meet with everybody, do my thing, and then I would run out the door at 6 o'clock before anybody caught me. Then I just got bored doing that. I wanted to do something else, so I decided I wanted to start developing condominiums in downtown Columbia, South Carolina. So I started developing condominiums, infill housing developments, office buildings, live-work units, and so forth. So I did that for 6 or 7 years of phenomenal success. Then I got into apartments. So in 2008, I started developing apartments in center cities around the Southeast. We were in Norfolk, Virginia, Winston-Salem, North Carolina, Asheville, North Carolina, Columbia, South Carolina, but we were doing all this in the Southeast, Atlanta, and we had a phenomenal success. And then 2015, I moved to Miami and started working for the Chinese. And when I worked for the Chinese, they sent me to Texas, and they signed me up to be their ambassador in Florida to China. So they put me on the development committee, Cuba, in China, because China was moving into Cuba. They put me on that. They put me on the harbor in Miami. They put me on that board. The board at the airport in Miami. They made me also ambassador for the development of Florida. And I can't remember the exact name of the board. So anyway, I was doing all of that, working for America Datong, which was owned by the Chinese power company. I had an office in Beijing, China, so I was going back and forth between Miami and Beijing. Back and forth, back and forth. That got a little bit tiring. I was recruited by a group out in Texas that were friends of mine that had the largest recreational land development company and marketing company in Texas. 2016, I moved out to Texas. That was a terrific adventure. I was living outside of Austin, and we were developing and selling about 2,500 land tracts, and we were the largest in Texas. COVID hit, and I ended up coming back to Florida, and I live right outside of the Villages in Central Florida, and I actually thought I was going to retire, but I don't want to retire, and I want to keep working, and I want to keep sharing my knowledge and want to keep helping people. That's where the Landman came from. So I've started an entity called the Landman. I am opening an entirely new commercial division for Central Florida for RE/MAX Premier. And that's where I am, and that's what I'm doing here now. In between Florida trip and my Texas trip, I was running a development called the Grove Resort Spa and Water Park in Orlando, and we were developing about 1,500 condominiums, and we were selling everything overseas. Everything was going international. Most of our clients were coming out of South America, Central America, Eastern Europe, and Canada. So I made a ton of great contacts. We were flying all over the world, setting up everything with brokers. I've developed a huge following of buyers, 25 countries, and I don't know how many buyers. I know my database of just Chinese in the Grove was over 100 buyers, and that was from my experience in Beijing when I brought them with me. I manicured some brokers down in South Florida, as well as South America and Mexico. They were funneling a huge number of buyers to me. So we sold 1,500 condominiums in about 4 years. So it was about 500 million, so it's a pretty big number. But that was a blast.